three-pointer. The Raptors took control in the third quarter, outscoring the Magic 31-19. Magic's head coach Jamal Mosley postgame on a poor third quarter, leading to the loss.
Oh, you called it. That third quarter got us again, not getting stops. Missed a lot of shots early on that I think it led to run-outs and leak-outs, a couple chippies at the rim. The fight was there just to stay in that when it wasn't going our way offensively. But again, we got to keep finishing possessions out was a big key. You know, them having 24 second chance points, 13 offensive rebounds. Those are small margins in a game that's close.
It's 71 degrees at 12 o'clock. Time in temp brought to you by Bueller Air and Plumbing. Stay cooler with Bueller.
1010XL is presented by Farah & Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Now, get ready to spend the next 2 hours with our three sports-loving ladies. Mia O'Brien, Lauren Brooks, and Taylor Dahl.
This is Helmets and Heels
on 1010XL.
Show me what you got, pretty lady.
Welcome into a Hump Day edition of Helmets and Heels. Mia O'Brien, Taylor Dahl, Lauren Brooks has the rest of the week off for a well-deserved vacation. RJ Saunders, happy to be alongside you once again back at 1010XL World Headquarters. Our thanks again to the UNF Golf Program for hosting us yesterday at Jack's Golf and Country Club. Excited to team up with them again come Monday for the annual Hate Tournament as well. But we begin today's program, Taylor Dahl, by picking up where we left off yesterday. We yesterday looked at 3 offensive linemen each in this year's NFL draft that we felt, regardless of where they fall on our big board, regardless of if they are a first or a second round pick, you look at this guy and you say, that's a Jaguar. But in a good sense.
Yeah.
I feel like up until...
We're trying to change the narrative of what that Jaguar kind of means.
The goal with James Gladstone and Liam Cohen now at the helm is that, much like the Detroit Lions, much like the Pittsburgh Steelers, you will be able to look at a draft prospect, identify those intangibly rich qualities, the certain traits that define what historically a Jacksonville Jaguar should look like, and we say, that's a good fit for what they need. And so we continue that series today along the defensive line. A whole lot to do beyond that. Our friends Neil Blackman of Saturday Down South, our friend Gus Logue here of 1010XL, Charles Davis, all going to join the program over the next 2 hours. But kick us off, Taylor, with your first defensive tackle who matches the Jacksonville Jaguars' energy.
So my first one is going to be something, because you and I and Gus were actually just talking about this, of what this scheme is actually going to look like. And you can assume between what has happened with Campanile and what he did in Green Bay and what Liam Cohen has seen in Tampa and what Gladstone has liked in LA. And so we're just kind of assuming right now what this defense scheme can actually look like. So my first guy is someone has a lot of scheme versatility, and that's why I picked him as my number one, which is Darius Alexander out of Toledo. A name you've probably already heard if you've started to dive into this a little bit, especially from the Senior Bowl. He had a really good Senior Bowl day, or I guess weekend, but very explosive, a lot of raw power. I talked about that versatility, not just with scheme, but also position. He played all over the defensive line at Toledo. He ran a 4.8 at 310 pounds. So to me, when you're watching a guy, you can see the power side, but you also can see the mobility side, and I think that's an important factor, especially from what I've seen in Campanile's defenses in Green Bay and how much that defensive line last year was such a massive factor in what they were doing overall on their defense, because we talked about the Green Bay defense of line the past few seasons before that kind of sat towards the bottom, honestly, and Campanile really revitalized that defensive line, and it was a huge factor into that success of the defense last year. So I think a player like this fits what I would assume Campanile's defense is going to look like. Like I said, we're still kind of guessing on that one, but I saw someone tweet about him during the Senior Bowl times, and I bookmarked it because it stuck out to me, and they interviewed him in Mobile, and they said he's built like an F-250, except he's also athletic, and that has stuck out to me since that point. So I do think that when you're talking about guys that can move but also have the power, this is the epitome of that type of player.
A 4.95 40-yard dash, the fifth best among defensive tackles. Also jumped 31.5 inches in the vertical.
Feet, that would be.
Yeah, I was gonna say feet. Sheesh, man, oh man. I'm looking at those like little apostrophes, and I'm like, wait a second here, that doesn't check out. A 7.6 three-cone drill. Again, the fifth best 40-yard dash for any defensive tackle. 28 reps on the bench. Spoiler alert, I also had Darius Alexander among my three. But good news, I have some backups, so let's hope we don't have any other players that overlap, because we do want to give you guys a breadth of different flavors, different names that potentially could be linked or could be a match for your Jacksonville Jaguars. And so instead, I will pivot to Ty Robinson, defensive tackle out of Nebraska. He had the fastest 40-yard dash of any defensive tackle at the Combine last week, a 4.83 in the 40. He also ran a 7.58 three-cone drill, also put up 28 reps on the bench. He is a guy who, when I watched the Iowa-Nebraska game earlier this year, Kevin looked at me and said, that man screams Nebraska in the best way possible. A throwback to one of those walk-ons from Nebraska of yesteryears, right? Who comes from a cornfield, emerges, much like in the Field of Dreams, and just is a run stuffer, clogs up the run, can also create and generate some pass rush from the interior. And then you actually get to know Ty Robinson, and you find out he's actually from Gilbert, Arizona. So maybe not necessarily a walk-on for the Huskers, but at the same time, he gives off that same traditional OG vibe, if you may, from Nebraska. I love Lance Zierlein's write-up on him on NFL.com. A bully with a roughshod playing style that forces blockers to match his physicality. NFL.com's comp is Grover Stewart, a player I've long admired for the Indianapolis Colts, and obviously someone who is known for his run defense in the interior, but can still generate a little bit of a pass rush. And so this is a scenario where maybe you go offensive line with your first and even your second round pick if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Ty Robinson is there at the top of the third. Why not create a carousel of interior pass rushers? I know, obviously, creating other options along the edge is also a focal point, not just, all right, we got Trayvon and Josh, and we're going to figure it out. No, we also want to create some depth there. But imagine having multiple interior pass rushers if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, we don't know really what that's like when you talk about those sack numbers and how they drop from Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen to everybody else having very minimal. I think Mason Smith with the 3 or 4 that was next. And so you do want to start having guys on the interior that can, and that is a big thing in Green Bay too. The amount of guys that were creating pressure there on both the inside and outside, but especially on the interior is a big important part of what Campanile likes to do up front.
Another thing with looking at Green Bay's defense under Jeff Hafley and Anthony Campanile and how they ran it, and we're going to talk a little bit more with Gus coming up at 1 o'clock about this. The idea of, because Gus came to our office and asked, are they going to be a base 4-down defense? Are they a 3-4? And I just said they're multiple. Yeah. And he did a great interview this morning with Justice Mosqueda, and they talked about the Packers and what they've been able to do in the last year plus under Jeff Hafley, and they almost had like a 5-down front. So far, the two names we've run through, Darius Alexander and Ty Robinson out of Nebraska, are both renowned in that they can play in both odd and even fronts. And that flexibility, I think, is going to be a priority for the Jaguars.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to kind of focus on at least one of my guys on the somebody who I know can fit different schemes and has been able to fit different schemes in their time in college. My number 2, I'm going to go similar in the route of yours, where maybe not the highest level pass rusher, but when it comes to run stuffing and when it comes to that area of the game is elite and still has the opportunity to be that guy to get to the quarterback too, and that's Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss.
Okay.
To me, he's pretty well balanced when it comes to that run stop and pass rush. A tad bit better though in the run stopping ability, but he's still able to create that pass rush from the interior. You saw that in college at Ole Miss. But he's really strategic with the pass rush, and that's what when you watch him and when you hear guys kind of break down his film, that's a word I've heard them say a lot, or I see a lot when people are breaking him down, is that strategic word, because he's kind of that slow play type of pass rusher. So sometimes if the quarterback's getting the ball out quick, maybe he's not getting that pass rush immediately, but he's one of the guys that will work at these offensive linemen and create movements and spins and has the patience to start finding these gaps. And so I do think that can turn into, especially if we're developing and making the secondary better, and the quarterbacks don't have the time to get the ball out quickly. Somebody like this in the interior who can have that patience and create these kind of things from the inside, I think is important. I honestly am not sure. A lot of people don't know if he's going to get out of the first round. So that's an interesting one, because if obviously, if maybe they go a different route at 5, they can, at the top of the second, maybe be lucky to get him. So this one still is a higher pick, but I do think it's somebody that you have to keep an eye on because I do also think he still could fit in the balance of what the Jags may do under Campanile.
There was some chatter at the Combine about potential red flags. I did not hear anything directly. The reports that I read and heard secondhand about with regards to Walter Nolan, perhaps the character profile that was given from the staff at Ole Miss was different than the character profile that was given from A&M. Obviously, you have to factor in a new coaching regime, a change at A&M, the downfall of Jimbo Fisher, the fact that Walter Nolan was the number 1 overall high school recruit. And so I don't take put as much stock into that
as some others may.
Right.
Yeah.
And also as much stock as I do some of the firsthand accounts I've heard from people who were in the room when James Pierce of Tennessee interviewed and just did not come off as necessarily the most high character individual. And so, or on the flip side of that, and I know a couple of you Heeligans, I've argued with you on the text line designed by Lifetime Enclosures about it, that Abdul Carter came off as brash in several of his interviews as well. And look, I know I'm the same gal who has advocated for this team needs more edge, it needs more dogs. But as we have also said on this program, Taylor, there's a difference between being a jerk and having that edge.
Yes.
And being maniacal in terms of your approach to your profession and your craft.
And now that's up to James Gladstone and a Liam Cohen and a Campanile to evaluate which side of that these players are. They miss sometimes. Sometimes it's people pass. We've talked about the Jalen Carter example a million times, but I do think that it's up to them at this point. I'm evaluating the tape and saying, hey, these are guys that I think would fit. Now it's up to them. I don't get to talk to these guys one-on-one to decide if I like their personality. So
let's keep it moving. But first, if you want to submit to us your 3 defensive tackles, interior defensive linemen who you think are a match for the Jacksonville Jaguars, whether they be a round 1 projection, a round 7 projection in this April's NFL draft, hit us up on the text line designed by Lifetime Enclosures at 904-641-1010 or the YouTube Digital Studio chat line. Just head on over to 1010XL on YouTube and you can leave a comment in the chat there. My second name to keep an eye out for the Jacksonville Jaguars, a match along the defensive line. You're going to sense a trend with my next 2 picks, Taylor. I have been enamored with what Shane Beamer did, not only in the portal, but in cultivating the talent that he already had on campus at South Carolina, a guy who many believed was on the hot seat going into the 2024 season. And quite frankly, he created a Monstars lineup along the defensive front. And the headliner, if it's not Kyle Kennard, the edge rusher, who I think once we get to edge rusher at some point this week, I think we're going to talk about Kyle Kennard a little bit then. But I will go with TJ Sanders, the redshirt junior, listed as a redshirt junior, but he'll be 21 opening day. Not really sure how the math's there. But hey, I digress.
I can't keep up with it anymore. So
one of the Heeligans said that we're not allowed to use the word traits. We have to use the word characteristics. So here are your characteristics for TJ Sanders. 6'4", 297, inside-outside versatility, flexibility in both an odd and an even front, 33 1/8 inch arms, 10 1/4 inch hands. He did not run the 40-yard dash, but he did run the 3-cone and the 20-yard shuttle. And in those 2 events, a 7.7 3-cone, 4.67 in the 20-yard shuttle, and a vertical jump of 31.5 inches and a broad jump of 9.4. He is a road grader, but also is a 3-down defensive lineman who could also generate pass rush from the inside. I think you could kick him out to the big end as well if you wanted to. And again, inside-outside flexibility as well as that versatility when it comes to both odd and even fronts is something that I believe the Jaguars will prioritize.
Yeah, and I think that when you go through, I saw a chart actually that popped out to me. Someone posted it was a draft guy, Dom C. He is on Twitter, but it's for the Scouting Academy. He does draft analyst for, and so he broke down this chart, and on it, it's 4 different categories. It's run stuffers, it's all-arounders, it's pass rush specialists, and it's like the in-betweeners. The only 2 guys, and this is, I think he only did probably the first 2 rounds of interior defensive linemen, but the only 2 guys in the all-rounders are Mason Graham and Darius Alexander, which makes sense as to why both of those would be at the top of, we've talked about Mason Graham a lot, Darius Alexander being on both of our lists. The run stuffers included Walter Nolan, where I picked, obviously, Kenneth Grant, who a lot of people talk about, but TJ Sanders is in his pass rush specialist category. Makes sense. So that is, if you want a guy that is that true, he's going to get to the quarterback and create pass rush no matter how he is going, no matter what and who, when, where, why, it's going to be TJ Sanders. And I loved watching South Carolina's defensive front this last season.
By the way, we forgot to start this segment by putting the big asterisk out there, Taylor.
Yeah, with not Mason. People are probably like, wait.
We did make a pact. We are not putting Mason Graham in our top 3. Both of us at nauseum have expressed that the Jaguars should be drafting him at number 5 overall, but we've pretty much exhausted all of his characteristics and why he would be a match for the Jaguars. And so that's why we're trying to give you some other names to keep an eye out who might be a match for your big cats. All right, Taylor, wrap it up for us.
Yeah, so I'm going to say this one's probably a little bit later, mid to late third round guy at this point, but Virginia Tech's Aeneas Peebles, true 3-tech guy. He has played a little bit in some other places on the line, but he is a 3-tech, and they predict him to still be that in the NFL. A little shorter and a little bit shorter arms, but we do not have to worry about those two things anymore, and that being a deterrent because he has just clear strength with the interior pass rush. And I've heard from back again another Senior Bowl guy that was just going insane. And if you go back to that, we talked a lot about Gray Zabel and how well Gray Zabel had played in the Senior Bowl and how his stock rise. Aeneas Peebles took down Gray Zabel a couple times, and that kind of shows me, okay, if we're talking about this offensive lineman building up and being this guy, Peebles was able to he was definitely a standout in the Senior Bowl on those one-on-ones. And I think that when you talk about someone like this, like I said, it's probably late. He may even go early in the 4th round at this point. Maybe it climbs. I don't know. But to me, he's just one of those guys where I do feel like when we talk about having a true 3-tech here, at least for the future, what does that look like? And to me, this is a guy that maybe it takes a year or two to get to that point. But if you can get him in the late 3rd, early 4th, and he can be that your 3-tech in 2 years, I think that's ideal situation for what the Jaguars could get. And
I will wrap. I said there'd be a theme. I will wrap with another South Carolina defensive lineman who the Jags potentially could target on day 3. I don't know why, but Taylor, in watching the Gamecocks this past fall, I always felt like Tonka Hemingway really had the potential to be more of a nose. He weighed in at 284, which is 13 pounds lighter than his running mate in TJ Sanders. I don't know why. I just always felt like, well, he's a classic interior defensive lineman. NFL scouts believe he's much more of a tweener. 33-inch arms, 6'3", again, 284, 9-inch hands. So the measurables aren't going to be that of a day 1 or a day 2 pick. But he's a guy who, if you get him late in the draft, you want to stick him at 5-tech for depth purposes. If this regime opts to say goodbye to a Tyler Lacey, let's say, and maybe this is your 6th-round project, if you may, to create more depth along that defensive front. He is a guy who worked in a system at South Carolina where they had a treasure trove of defensive linemen. They rotated them in different sizes, different characteristics, not traits, characteristics. And so, again, just a different flavor, perhaps, along that defensive line, and comes from the pedigree of what I believe is one of the better defensive lines we've seen in the last few years. And so, just to recap, for my 3 defensive linemen that I will have my eye on, a potential match for the Jaguars, not including Mason Graham, again, asterisk there. Ty Robinson out of Nebraska, TJ Sanders out of South Carolina, and Tonka Hemingway out of South Carolina. And Taylor?
Yes, and so mine were, let me pull it back up real quick. So we had Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. I had Aeneas Peebles out of Virginia Tech, and then Darius Alexander out of Toledo.
All right, that is our 3. Who are your 3? Hit us up at 904-641-1010 or the YouTube digital studio by searching 1010XL and leave us a comment in the chat. Still a whole lot to do in this opening hour of Helmets and Heels on a Hump Day Wednesday. We have the Terminex Pests of the Day on the other side. Again, Neil Blackman going to join us in about 15 minutes to talk Gator basketball on the road at Alabama this evening. You are listening to Helmets and Heels on 1010XL and 92.5 FM.
A symphony of sweat, grit, and glory. Dive into the action and live the moments. For play-by-play, it's 1010XL.
Jags fans, here's your chance to score a trip to Green Bay for round 1 of draft night. Through the Everbank Draft Night Experience Sweepstakes, one lucky winner and a guest will be there live and in person to see the Jaguars make their first pick. To enter, visit everbank.com/draft by April 4th. That's everbank.com/draft. No purchase necessary to enter or win. Open to legal residents of the United States and D.C. 18 and older. Entry period from 3/3/25 to 4/4/25. For official rules, prize description, odds of winning, and other details, visit everbank.com/draft. Sponsored administrator, Everbank N.A.
Winter clutter holding you back? Freshen up your home this spring with a custom organization solution from Closets by Design. Mia here, and for a limited time, take advantage of their spring special. Take 40% off any order of $1,000 or more, 30% off any order of $700 to $1,000, and heck, take an extra 15% off with 18-month special financing. Call today to schedule your free in-home consultation at 1-800-293-3744 or visit closetsbydesign.com.
Have you got concrete or asphalt rubble piling up? Arcosa Crushed Concrete will pay you for it and recycle it. They're just minutes from Everbank Stadium on Talleyrand. Call Arcosa Crushed Concrete and get paid for what you don't need. ArcosaCrushedConcrete.com.
Hi, I'm Sean Monahan from Monahan Jewelers in Atlantic Beach. Since 1977, we've been Jacksonville's local family jeweler with a beautiful selection of fine jewelry and certified diamonds. But we're also Jacksonville's leading buyer of gold and silver and diamonds from the public. Gold has recently hit an all-time high at almost $3,000 per ounce. Pay bills, buy something fun. Now is the time to sell your gold for cash and get top dollar or trade it in for a new piece and get even more value at Monahan Jewelers in Atlantic Beach.
It's Helmets and Heels Kingfish Pest Control Wednesday.
Homeowners, listen up. It's time to start fresh in 2025. Prosser here, and Loan Pronto is here to help take control of your finances in 2025 by lowering your house payments and consolidating that nagging debt. Did you know that 9 out of 10 borrowers get a better deal by calling Loan Pronto? Right now, Loan Pronto has some of the most competitive offers for refis, debt consolidation, and purchase loans, starting in the low 5s APR. If your current rate is over 6%, don't settle for paying too much. Even if you're in process with another lender, call Loan Pronto now. Lock in at a lower rate today and close in as little as 2 weeks, often with no appraisal. You can even skip your next 2 house payments. It's fast, easy, and hassle-free. Get your personalized Loan Pronto rate quote instantly with no hard credit pull and no upfront fees. Call now, 904-999-1508, or go to loanpronto.com. That's 904-999-1508. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781. Subject to lender approval, NMLS consumeraccess.org.
Hey folks, Rick Ballou here for John's Auto. They've been a staple in Jacksonville going all the way back to 1985. At John's Auto, they service all makes, all models, cars, trucks, diesel, you name it, they do it. Whether it's routine maintenance or a complete engine overhaul. Call John's Auto on Arlington Road. That's 904-743-3857, or go to johnsautomotivejacks.com.
Brian and Angela Wall here with Window World. By now, everyone has heard about saving money on their energy bills. There are all sorts of things you can do to cut energy costs, but most people don't think about their windows.
But Window World knows that the biggest energy loss in almost every home is the windows. There is more energy loss from old builder-grade windows than just about anything else in your home.
You can upgrade your heating and air, your appliances. That's good too. But before you do all that, upgrade your windows to Window World's energy-efficient windows.
Window World's windows are easy to clean, energy efficient, and have the best guarantee in the business.
Window World's slogan is simply the best for less, and we mean it. You get great American-made windows, and you get to keep more of your money when you buy from Window World. Need any more reasons to buy your windows from Window World? Call them today and set up your free in-home estimate, or go online to windowworldneflorida.com. Window World, simply the best for less. Thank you for your business.
Window World also offers energy-efficient doors.
All aboard! The Combine, Free Agency, the Draft.
Here we go!
Ride the off-season like a locomotive with AA Automotive and 1010XL.
Might want to buckle up, baby.
AA Automotive on Richard Street. Family run since 1954.
When you're experiencing sudden, unexpected dental pain, the last thing you want to hear is that your dentist can't see you until next week. That's why I'm so glad I found Harbor Dental Care. Whenever I call, they always find a way to see me within 24 hours, and they can usually fix whatever's wrong the same day. Plus, they have locations throughout Jacksonville, so no matter what side of town I'm on, I can always count on the same great care. If you want to find a dentist who believes in treating people right, learn more at harbordental.care. That's HARBOUR dental.care.
Tired of changing out bad sod year after year? Get it done right with Roundtree Sod. Big or small, they have it, and always supplied farm fresh. For a lush, legendary green lawn, call 7414-SOD for a free estimate. 7414-SOD.
My son had a meniscus surgery a couple years ago. When it's smooth as silk, Dr. Kevin Murphy did it. Was playing tennis in 2 weeks. This is Patrick Malarkey, and I highly recommend
Southeast Orthopedic Specialists.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville.
Already heard from some of you Hooligans on the text line designed by Lifetime Enclosures, as well as the YouTube Digital Studio. Some other names that might be a match for the Jaguars at some point in April's NFL draft along the defensive front. Taylor Dahl, I think, especially excited to see the one Hooligan putting a vote out there for Riley Mills.
Yes, I love Riley Mills, but like I didn't put him because I feel like it makes me just look a little biased.
Well, it just makes you look like a homer. It's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually thought about putting Y.A. Black out of Iowa, so I mean, hey, listen.
But he's fantastic. I mean, and I think that you could immediately tell when Riley Mills got injured how that affected the defensive front at Notre Dame, who they still were able to manage, but it just didn't look the same. He's so good at creating pressure. He's so good at setting the edge. He can do all of it, and so he is somebody I really, really like. To the point on the text line, he did tear an ACL not very long ago, so that is something you obviously have to take into account.
A couple of votes for Cam Jackson of Florida, a couple more votes for Walter Nolan, who Taylor referenced on her list. Go back and check it out on demand in case you missed that opening segment. Right now, let's check in and see what is bugging Taylor.
Now, Lauren's Terminix Pest of the Day.
All right, so my pest of the day is going to be that we do not have to make everything in this day and age a sport that we watch on a stream or on a channel. If you've missed this, if you go on to Twitter or I'm sure Google, whatever you want to do, and just look up a blow pop battle or a blow pop race. So they have a competition where there's a race to the center of a blow pop, and there's guys announcing, there's people in the booth calling, there's a color guy telling stories about the guys as they're just sucking on these lollipops, and one guy very aggressively sucking on this lollipop, the other, but you're not allowed to bite, so that's their secret.
What channel is this on?
It's like, I truly do not know.
Is it on YouTube?
I think it's like a YouTube stream, it looks like.
All right.
But it's literally
It makes
called
it feel a little bit better, at least, because
Race to the Center of a Blow Pop. And there's a score at the bottom. This one guy's winning 2-0, so he already has taken down 2 blow pops. But it's honestly a little funny because the one guy is going absolutely ham on this lollipop, and they're talking to the announcers are talking to him, so they can hear them, and they're like, look up at the camera, and the guy doesn't know where the camera is, so he's trying to like lick this lollipop while looking dead into the camera's eyes. And it's fascinating, but there's definitely 2 very different approaches. One guy, like I said, he's swirling this thing all over his mouth, going crazy. The other guy's just kind of slow and steady, but you're not allowed to bite. So the announcers keep saying, like, no teeth the whole time.
I'm not gonna lie, folks. When Taylor Dahl showed me this video earlier, I thought this was like a halftime on a jumbotron sort of live stream.
No, I think it's a Barstool thing. I see some like Barstool logos in the back, which is fitting if this is just a full-on Barstool competition that they've made. But so we don't have to do this with everything. I know they're probably just trying to be silly and funny, but the 2 guys look very serious and intense in this. Like, they are taking this very seriously.
Well, we still don't know. It's one of the biggest unanswered questions in humanity. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?
Without actually biting. And maybe they'll between these 2 guys, we'll be able to tell the approach and which way you actually can get to the center a little faster. But yeah, so that is my pest of the day, just because I feel like nowadays, and I remember going back to COVID times, and the things we'd watch on ESPN were just like anything at that point. Like cornhole was going crazy because there was nothing else on. And this made me think instantly, like, this is a COVID thing that would have happened that year, because they would have been like, okay, sit 6 feet apart, but just eat this lollipop. And it gives us some sort of sport to watch.
You can live stream it from your house.
Yes, you don't have to leave. There's not a big arena of people watching this. But yeah, so that is my Terminix pest of the day. And remember that Terminix handles the pest control for all of your favorite event venues venues. That's Everbank Stadium, Daly's Place, Five Star Financial Ballpark, Five Star Veterans Memorial Arena, and many more. If you have any pest or termite issues, visit Terminix.com today to schedule a free inspection online. That's TERMINIX.com.
In addition to the 3 defensive tackles who you think might be a match for the Jaguars, if you have more insight into the lollipop competition,
let us know.
904-641-1010 or the YouTube Digital Studio is the way to reach us at. A top 10 showdown in the SEC in Tuscaloosa this evening. Neil Blackman of Saturdays Down South going to join us coming up next to discuss Florida, Alabama, tipping off at 7 o'clock on ESPN2 tonight. This is Helmets and Heels on 1010XL and 92.5 FM.
Joe Coward.
My reputation as a salesman precedes me.
Matt Hayes.
She's next on my list.
And Leon Searcy.
We're going to make the promised land. We have to work together.
They're XL Prime Time.
Then we're in big trouble.
Afternoons 2 to 4 on 1010XL.
Elevate your happy hour at the new Dua Restaurant and Lounge on Bay Meadows Road. Inspired by the vibrant and diverse culinary traditions of the Mediterranean, Dua has a unique South Florida vibe and welcoming atmosphere. Savor handcrafted cocktails and delicious happy hour specials every Monday to Friday, 5 to 8 p.m. Whether kicking back after work or starting your night in style, Dua Restaurant and Lounge on Bay Meadows Road is where good times and great flavors meet. DuaLoungeJacks.com.
Don't miss the Players' Championship, March 11th through 16th at TPC Sawgrass. This can't-miss event features a variety of activities for every fan to enjoy, from delicious bites to the Sawgrass Splash. There are endless fan enhancements that will make for a memorable experience. Plus, watch the top PGA Tour players, including back-to-back champion Scotty Scheffler, take on the iconic stadium course featuring the famous Island Green. Tickets available at theplayers.com.
Hi, I'm Karen, owner of Clay Solar Installation Partners, your local women-owned solar company. At Clay Solar, we're more than just panels and power. We're about people. We make the switch to clean energy simple, stress-free, and built to last. If you've had a bad experience with solar in the past, we can help. We specialize in dependable solutions and top-notch customer service, so you can finally enjoy the savings and sustainability you deserve. Schedule your free consultation at claysolar.com.
It's Helmets and Heels, Kingfish Pest Control Wednesday. Proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Tired of seeing the signs of aging in the mirror, fine lines, sun damage, redness? They don't have to be part of your future. I'm Dr. Mark Capel, a board-certified dermatologist, and I can help you look and feel your best without invasive surgery or painful treatments. Imagine rejuvenating your skin in a relaxing, comfortable environment with minimal to no downtime. Smooth out fine lines, even skin tone, and restore that youthful glow. Find out how to look and feel your best at Dermagnify.com. Dermagnify.com.
Did you know your pup could take 30,000 to 60,000 steps a day at Dogtopia of Jacksonville Beach Boulevard? That's a whole lot of tail wagging fun with their best furry friends. At Dogtopia, they turn playtime into exercise, learning, and socialization in their off-leash, open play environment. Dogs build confidence, reduce anxiety, and stay happy and healthy, all while having the time of their lives. Visit Dogtopia of Jacksonville Beach Boulevard today.
This Date in Sports History is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists.
On March 5th, 1985, Mike Bossy of the New York Islanders scores his 50th goal, becoming the first NHL player to score 50 goals in 8 consecutive seasons.
Transform your bathroom with stunning shower glass from Sky Glass Solutions in Jacksonville Beach. For a free quote, call 904-608-5151 or visit skyglasssolutions.com.
I'm Carl. I'm 68 years old, and I lost 40 pounds thanks to Awaken 180 weight loss. In looking at pictures, I realized that my color wasn't good. I looked bloated, constantly tired, out of breath. It got to the point where I decided it was time to pick up the phone and call Awaken 180. The combination of the diet and the coaching really pushed me over the top. My self-confidence soared. I'm walking. I'm working out. Instead of 68, I feel like I'm 28. I just had my annual physical, and my doctor looked at my blood pressure and he said, "What did you do? What happened?" And I explained that I'm on the Awaken 180 program. I've never felt so good in my life. And as somebody that sometimes likes to take the shortcut, I didn't have to do that with this program. Awaken 180 is my solution for weight loss.
Carl's solution for weight loss, my solution for weight loss. Matt Hayes here. Lower blood pressure, increased confidence,
feeling years younger. Want the same results? Then do what we did and make your own at Awaken180, weightloss.com.
DivorceMenOnly.com. This is Kenny Lay of Kenny Lay and Associates. Our firm specializes in representing men in family law. That's all we do. That's our only focus. We can help with all of your family law needs, such as divorce, custody, alimony, and child support. For over a decade, we have helped thousands of men with these types of issues. We even have an appellate division ready to challenge a judge's ruling. If you need a family law attorney, go to DivorceMenOnly.com. DivorceMenOnly.com. Offices, Jacksonville.
Find the Celt in you. March 9 and 10 at the St. Augustine Celtic Music and Heritage Festival with Celtic bands, Highland Games, St. Patrick's Parade and more. CelticStAugustine.com. Sponsored by St. John's County TDC.
Hey folks, Hicken here for Zero Res. You're going to want to beat the spring cleaning rush and call our cleaning heroes at Zero Res. This month, get one room Zero Resified starting at $53. Hey, and take $100 off your air duct cleaning. Don't forget about your air ducts. Your air ducts sort of like the lungs of your home. If they're dirty, your indoor air quality suffers. Visit ZeroResJacksonville.com. Tell them Dan or 1010XL sent you. Spell it forwards or backwards. Zero Res. It's the right way to clean.
Zero Res. Hon, who'd you call to fix our plumbing issue?
I forget their name. They said they do plumbing work.
Then what's that big thing they're driving?
Looks like a grease truck.
Grease truck?
Ugh, to pump the grease traps.
You wouldn't call a landscaper to floor your home, so why call a grease trap company for a plumbing issue? Duck Rooter is your certified plumbing contractor, specializing in all things plumbing. Get Jacksonville's real plumbing pros. Visit DuckDuckRooter.com, proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville.
1, 2, 3, my baby don't mess around because she loves me so, and this I know for sure.
The fifth-ranked Florida Gators men's basketball team, 3-point underdogs on the road this evening in Tuscaloosa, taking on the seventh-ranked Crimson Tide. To preview this one and a whole lot more, Neil Blackman of Saturday Down South, maiden voyage on Helmets and Heels here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM. Neil, appreciate you hopping on with us.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me. I love the show.
Most appreciated, sir. Let's dive right into it. Florida, Alabama, top 10 showdown. Florida coming off of an impressive victory over Texas A&M, a double-digit victory on Saturday. Alabama loses at the buzzer to Tennessee. How do you believe, big picture, these two teams are approaching this second-to-last regular season game?
I think probably pretty similarly. Look, the Alabama is very well situated to be a one seed. I would argue they control their own destiny in that respect. If they win their next two games, they would have probably the second best resume in the country behind Auburn. So I think they're in control of their own destiny for NCAA tournament seeding. Florida, it has a little less control, but certainly if they win tonight against Alabama, they would have two of maybe the five most impressive wins on the season, the most impressive being at Auburn, and then they would win at Alabama. That would put them, give them a very strong case for a one seed, assuming that, they didn't lose in the first game in Nashville. So I would imagine in a very similar approach from both programs. Obviously, the intangible aspects of tonight's game in Tuscaloosa, I think, favor Alabama immensely. Mark Sears, probably the greatest player in Alabama history, playing for the final time on his home floor, along with probably LeBaron Filan, Grant Nelson, and a couple other Alabama players that are likely that will either graduate or head to the NBA. That's a big emotional battle for Florida to go up against, and we saw last night what an emotional team can do on senior night when Texas A&M really manhandled Auburn. So big challenge for Florida, but huge opportunity for both teams.
Neil, when we talk about that experience that Nate Oates is even bringing back when it comes to a Mark Seals and a Grant Roberts after their run last year, how does Florida in a game like tonight slow those guys down and kind of match the experience level of what Alabama was able to do last year and then now bringing it into what potentially is looking at the tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. the good news for Florida is they should be confident playing Alabama. Last year Alabama made the run to the Final Four. Florida blew Alabama out twice in March a season ago, which seems strange to say given the Crimson Tide went to the Final Four. But, Mark Sears was not somebody Florida really contained in either game. I think he had 30 in one, 25 or 26 in the other. And Florida won both games very handily. Now, neither of those games were in Tuscaloosa, but, Florida had a 10-point lead in Tuscaloosa a season ago against, like you said, an Alabama team that had essentially the same core pieces. And Alabama was able to come back and beat Florida in overtime. But I think Florida will go up there confident. Obviously, they won at Auburn, so they're used to they know they can compete in intimidating environments. And it'll just be a question of whether Florida can kind of corral all the additional pieces this Alabama team has. And what I mean by that is I think Alabama's backcourt is even deeper. You've heard a lot of attention rightly on Florida's backcourt and their guards being the best in the country. I would say Alabama's are the second best in the country with Sears, and not just Sears and Filan, who will be a lottery pick, but I think, Chris Youngblood gives them kind of a defensive stopper who can really shoot the ball. And then Aiden Holloway, the Auburn transfer, has exceeded my expectations for him. The guy's a walking bucket, shooting 42% from three in SEC play. So it's a lot for Florida to kind of handle. To beat Alabama, you have to outscore them. The good news is the Gators are certainly equipped to do that.
Neil, you saying Chris Youngblood just warms my heart because when we talk about the transfer portal, we always talk about it through this negative connotation. Having called his game at Kennesaw State when they came here to UNF, knowing, of course, he followed the late Amir Abdur-Rahim to South Florida, now gets to play for a top 10 team in Tuscaloosa. He is all that is good about the transfer portal. But I digress. Neil Blackman joining us of Saturday Down South talking Gator hoops, SEC hoops. You can find him on X at NW Blackman. You can also catch him on the Florida Basketball Hour podcast with Eric Fawcett. Let's talk a little bit more about the Gators rotation, Neil. Will Richard is shooting 50% from the floor, the hottest shooter arguably in the conference the last 2 weeks, which for Taylor and I, it's hilarious because I feel like, Taylor, every morning in our office, we have a Gator alum here at 1010XL who comes in, who will remain nameless, Graham Marsh, and laments about the nights in which Will Richard goes completely cold and then the next night goes for 30.
Yeah.
How do you deduce the nature of that backcourt for Florida, the highs, the lows? Is it a positive that even if someone like Richard goes cold, there's always somebody else who can step up, especially with Urban Klavzar now a part of the rotation?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great question, and you put it quite well. And by the way, great point on Chris Youngblood. And I look at this Florida team having the best backcourt in the country, and the core of it is three mid-major players who know not enough Power 6 conference and now Power 5 league teams offer scholarships to, right? The only one of them, of the three, Elijah Martin, that's the core three, Elijah Martin, Walter Clayton Jr., and Will Richard, that really had the option of going to a Power 5 school would have been Richard, and those offers came very late. So I think the thing about them is if one guy is super hot, there tends to be one guy that plays great on any particular night. Now, Saturday, they manhandle A&M a little bit, and, Elijah Martin had a big first half. Will Richard obviously was tremendous in kind of warding off the Aggies' comeback. And it was interesting because Walter Clayton was 3 for 13, right? He did not play well offensively. Now, I think he did some really nice things elsewhere. But that's have knockdown shooters like Klavzar and Richard, who, you mentioned his shooting percentages lately. He's shooting 42% in league play, which is tremendous. So lots of different ways that they can beat you. And that gives Florida a lot of flexibility in March because not only do they become kind of our star player at a bad night proof because someone else will step up, but Florida has a lot of different ways that they can beat you because we haven't even mentioned the front court flexibility they have, especially as Alex Kahn gets healthy.
Yeah, Neil, one of the things that sticks out to me is kind of the opposite situation that's happening. Obviously, last year with Micah Handlockton getting hurt in the tournament, and now he's getting healthy and he's becoming kind of growing that role, getting that role back that he had last year that we saw drastically change what Florida was able to do. So what are your expectations with him, how much he is used in the tournament right away, and what can that even add to the momentum of getting him healthy just in time for this?
Yeah, it's a great question. We just saw it Saturday. I mean, I think he was really integral in defeating A&M, who isn't just a great rebounding team. They're a historically good rebounding team. Their KenPom rebounding percentage is the best in the KenPom era. And we saw them out-rebound Auburn 41-25 last night. So you get an idea of what they can do. And there were multiple rebounds in the second half where, it was Micah Handlockton and multiple Aggies, and Micah came down with the ball. I think that Florida's front court rotation is very matchup reliant. I think that this staff in particular, because they're so analytic, they're going to be looking at who and what lineups are effective in any particular game and roll with those guys. Lou scored 19 and 13 in their win at LSU when multiple guys weren't available. And so they have a lot of confidence in him. I imagine he will continue to start. But, yeah, I mean, if you can get 15 to 20 minutes out of Micah Handlockton, he's not going to score, but he does so many other things that impact winning. And I think that's probably what you'll be looking at as we move into March Madness here.
Neil, as we get ready to wrap with you, two-part question. Number one, cap it for us. How many of the 16 teams in the SEC make the NCAA tournament when all is said and done on Selection Sunday? And second, do you think Florida gets back up to the one line?
So, I'll answer the second question first. I think if Florida wins tonight, they will get a 1 seed. It's difficult for me to see. Ole Miss is not a team that matches up particularly well with Florida. And again, it's one of those senior night type games that I think will be very challenging for Ole Miss, period. And I think Florida would then have it'd be hard for the committee to tell Florida, hey, we know you wanted Auburn. We know you wanted Alabama. We know you have 27 regular season wins. We're seeding you second. Good luck against Duke in the Elite Eight. I think that's a tough sell as a committee. So I think Florida would get a 1 seed if they win tonight. In terms of the SEC, I have written all year that I think they'll break the Big East record, which was 11 in 2011. I think they'll get 12 teams in. I know there are some folks that are politicking for 13. I just can't see it, especially because Texas and Oklahoma play this weekend. And I almost feel like the winner of that game can feel pretty good about where they are in terms of getting a bid, whereas the loser might be, into that second 4-out category where they have to make an extended run in the SEC tournament.
Which just not mind-numbing, by the way, Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
If Oklahoma wins that game, to Neil's point, I agree with him. I think they're in. They would have 5 conference wins. They would literally have gone, 5-13, Neil? 5-13 in conference play and still would be in the NCAA tournament.
That's insane. That speaks for a conference. Neil, I want to ask you real quick before we let you go too, because when you look at Florida's season this year and those 4 losses, the 3 of them 5 and 6 points, I think the Tennessee is kind of the outlier. And I wanted to originally ask maybe what
has been really consistent. It's the most undiscussed thing among elite teams in college basketball. I stole that from Jay Billis, so I should attribute it to him. But I think the fact that Florida is 8th in the country in defensive efficiency, and you really just hear about how good they are at scoring, is a real story. And I think that's helped. I also think they're just mature. I mean, to Mia's point, one of the beautiful things about the portal is the opportunity and platform it gives some of these players who might not have otherwise had it. And I think Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin, who's been to a Final Four with Florida Atlantic, and Will Richards have embraced that. There's a level of maturity about this team. And so if they lose a game, they tend to respond. And, I expect Florida to go up to Alabama and be very competitive tonight, even if they aren't able to kind of overcome Mark Sears' senior night magic.
What's that stat, Neil? Something about like if you want to win the national championship, you need to be a KenPom top 25 team in offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency.
That's right.
I'm not saying, but I'm saying, Taylor Dahl, the numbers, they are aligning in the Florida Gators' favor. Neil
That's
Blackman
right.
of Saturday Down South. Hey, thanks so much for popping on, Neil. We got to do it again soon. This is March, and we appreciate you hopping on.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
And again, you can find Neil and all his work at NW Blackman. That's BLACKMON. He also is the co-host of the Florida Basketball Hour with Eric Fawcett. If you're looking for breakdowns, if you are a basketball junkie, if you're looking at different half-court sets and metrics and efficiencies that you want to actually be able to dissect, Eric Fawcett is a great follow as well for all things Gator basketball and beyond. Taylor, I realized we have gotten 47 minutes into today's program, and we have not discussed. RJ, maybe we could queue up a little breaking here.
We have a couple breaking, actually.
Oh, okay. All right. We have not discussed the Chicago Bears.
Now, breaking news.
Yeah, so that was, I know people do not really care, but I guess this is another thing of maybe there was a tie of what exactly was going to be added offensive line-wise in Jacksonville, but the Bears did trade for Joe Thuney today, which to me, the bigger, Chiefs, I mean, I guess they have to they're paying Trey Smith, so they're having to pay him so much money that they have to start kind of figuring other things out. But Joe Thuney didn't allow a single sack all season this year. He had one penalty. I saw a stat earlier that said he was he has like the lowest error rate of any offensive lineman in the past 3 years or something like that. It's insane. So, and it was for a 2026 fourth rounder that they got him for. So it is interesting, but I do think that we've talked about that on this show, Mia, when it comes to what the Jaguars are doing, and you and I both believe that we think that they are going to want to build young on the offensive line and not really they've tried the free agency stuff, and you have guys like a Brandon Sheriff and an Ezra Cleveland that maybe can get you through a year or two if you draft and need to develop, or if you are able to get one of those higher end guys that can come out right now. You still have pieces on your line that you're confident in. But yeah, just another interesting note when it comes to offensive lineman movement around the league too.
And as one young Trent Osborne comes sprinting into the studio and death stared me, a little bit of breaking news close to home.
Now, breaking news.
According to Adam Schefter of ESPN, the Jaguars plan to release veteran wide receiver Christian Kirk. Obviously, a massive domino for the roster construction for James Gladstone, Liam Cohen, and how this first Jaguars team, under their leadership will look. Reports had surfaced over the last few weeks about Kirk potentially restructuring his deal, was set to have the largest cap number of any member of the Jaguars' 2025 roster. Reports also that prior to him breaking his collarbone mid-season, Trent Baalke had been shopping him around the trade deadline. It appears now his time in Jacksonville is over, at least for now. A lot to unpack.
Yeah.
A lot to unpack. Maybe we should do it with Gus Logue.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's take a break. Let's decompress. Again, if you're just turning on your radio, especially after just getting that notification from Adam Schefter, the Jaguars do plan to release veteran wide receiver Christian Kirk, according to ESPN. We'll discuss that as well as more NFL draft talk on the other side right here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM.
Making spring a Jacksonville thing.
What a week!
Get live Southeast Orthopedic Specialist leaderboard updates.
Enhanced by
Magnify Medical, Surgical, and Cosmetic Dermatology, San Jose Collision, and Doorbell Farms Produce Delivery.
At Hodges Mazda, they are proud of their solid reputation in the Jacksonville community. Lauren Brooks here. As your hometown Mazda dealer, their high customer service standards and their huge inventory of new and used cars provide their customers a consistently first-rate car buying experience. Their professional non-commissioned sales team puts your best interest first without exception. And all new vehicle purchases include the Hodges Mazda Protection Package. Visit them at HodgesMazda.com or stop in today to learn more and discover the Hodges Mazda difference.
Florida Home AC wants to make sure you're super cool when things heat up and toasty warm when the temps drop. Indoor comfort for you all year long is what they're going for. Log on to FloridaHomeAC.com to score great deals on an AC tune-up and keep the temperature perfect.
Need or want cash?
Beach's Jewelry and Pawn has cash available. Ready to buy guitars, surfboards, jewelry, firearms, tools, and especially gold. They need it all, selling or pawning. Get cash on the spot at Beach's Jewelry and Pawn in Jacksonville Beach.
What is the most populated city in the world? The answer next.
When you file a claim with Southern Oak Insurance, we schedule one of our trusted vendors to work directly with you, which means a faster claim resolution. Find out more at southernoak.com.
Our family protecting yours. Southern Oak Insurance.
With a population of an astounding 37.7 million people, Tokyo, Japan is the most populated city in the world.
Southern Oak Insurance. Our family protecting yours.
The housing market is as busy as ever on the First Coast. And if you've moved in or moved on, make sure you have a team of trained electricians ready to help. American Electrical can make sure you're up to date electrically and maximize your living experience. Smart home automation services, home theater systems, outdoor and dock lighting, and backup generators. American Electrical can do it all. A team you can trust with highly trained technicians ensuring you have the best living experience. American-Electrical.com, a leader on the First Coast and powered by professionalism.
Helmets and heels.
Kingfish Pest Control Wednesday.
Lauren Brooks here for Terminix. When pests invade your home or business, you don't just need them out, you need them out fast. And you need to keep them out. At Terminix, they'll show up for you and eliminate pests quicker, just like they did at my house, because they care about what matters most to you. When pests show up, so does Terminix. Don't live with a pest problem, Terminix it. Visit Terminix.com today to schedule a free inspection online. That's TERMINIX.com. That's right, Terminix it.
Home of the Jacksonville Jaguars. WJXL AM Jacksonville Beach. WJXL FM Jacksonville Beach.
What's happening, folks? E.T. here, and it may be hard to believe, but Spring Park is just around the corner. Are you ready for an adventure? Whether you're kayaking on Black Creek, hiking through Jennings State Forest, or enjoying live entertainment, Clay County is the perfect place to relax and explore. Plan your trip and find out what's happening at exploreclay.com. And don't forget to share your adventures by tagging #ExploreClay on social media. Come on, somebody.
Out with the old, in with the organized. Mia here for my friends at Closets by Design. Freshen up your home this spring with a custom organization solution. For a limited time, take advantage of our spring special and enjoy exclusive savings on closets, garages, home offices, and more. That's 40% off with an additional 15% off with 12-month special financing through April. Spring on this deal before it's gone. Call today to schedule your free in-home consultation with Closets by Design.
What could you do with an extra $75,000 right now, or even a couple $100,000? If you own a home, you can get that money in less than a week with Loan Pronto. Hey, Prosser here. Loan Pronto is the leader in quickly converting your home equity into cold hard cash, so you can pay off all your credit cards or start that home remodel. Loan Pronto has several easy options to let you access the cash from your home. There's virtually no paperwork, no cumbersome process, no junk fees, often no appraisals. Listen, the average homeowner now has over $300,000 in equity. That's your money. Use it. One client got $150,000 out and paid off all their credit cards, 2 car loans, and a personal loan, cutting their monthly expenses by $1,500. You can get approved in as little as 1 day, so act now with no hard credit pull up front. LoanPronto.com or 904-999-1508. Get the money you need for anything at 904-999-1508 or just go to LoanPronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
Denny Thompson here. If you haven't heard, Tyson Sound and Security has a house built right inside their showroom, showcasing complete home automation and security systems. You have to see it to believe it. This setup can recognize intruders who approach your door and alerts them to leave if there's a break-in. Tyson Sound and Security, your security, home theater, and home automation experts. New showroom at 3555 U.S. Highway 17 in Fleming Island.
Hey, Hicken here, or just call me Dreamfinders Danny. For a limited time to ring in the new year, Dreamfinders Homes is offering an amazing 4.99% fixed interest rate. You heard me right. It's 4.99 fixed interest rate on select move-in ready homes. Visit dreamfindershomes.com for sales event information and get in the game. Interest rate available on select move-in ready homes. Restrictions and limitations apply. Go to dreamfindershomes.com for more details.
This is
Molly McDonald with your 1010XL Southeast Orthopedic Specialist local sports update, brought to you by Dogtopia at Beach in St. John's Bluff. With only 2 games left in regular season for the Gators basketball, every game is a must-win, starting with tonight's top 10 tussle in Tuscaloosa. The Gators and Crimson Tide could possibly play for the number 2 seed in the SEC tournament. Head coach Todd Golden wants to see his team finish the season as strong as they started to benefit the most going into the tournament.
We have 2 really big challenges ahead of us. Obviously, this Bama game, both of us are playing for second right now. I think whoever wins on Wednesday have the inside track for that, which is a great accomplishment. There's a wide margin of where we could end up based on how this week goes. A lot to still play for. We're very excited about the opportunity on Wednesday. I know Alabama is also, I think it'll be a great game, a great opportunity. With that being said, we're still shooting for the 1 seed and the double bye. So if we can get both those things done, I'd be really happy.
It's 73 degrees at 12:56.
It's at Starbucks.
That guy breaks a lot of news.
Adam Schefter of ESPN has broken the news that Christian Kirk is set to be released by your Jacksonville Jaguars. Releasing Kirk will save the Jaguars over $10.4 million against the cap. Kirk will now become a free agent in an increasingly crowded. We're planning at 1 o'clock to welcome on our very own Gus Logue, who is leading up our 1010XL NFL Draft Guide coverage, which will be available to all of you Heeligans, to all of our 1010XL listeners come March 31st. But first things first, Gus, since you're here, we want your reaction. As the host of Duval Rundown, of course, of Big Cat Country here at 1010XL, Christian Kirk being released is a surprise or it's not a surprise?
I think it's a little bit of a surprise, especially when you consider the human element. First of all, how's it going, guys?
Hi, Gus. Welcome to the studio. Round of applause,
Breaking
RJ.
news just in time.
Breaking news. Gus is in the house, baby.
Appreciate you guys having me on. Good to see you guys. Yeah, I definitely think it was a surprise considering the human element of it. Obviously, there's a connection with Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk, both on the field and off the field. They've got a good relationship. And then Spencer Whipple, hired from the Cardinals, has a relationship with Liam Cohen, obviously landing on his staff, but was also with Arizona Cardinals coaching Christian Kirk at the receiver position for a few years. And so there was definitely a few different important connections within the building, but ultimately it is a business, and that's what it came down to, is the money.
What do you think? Because we're already getting a ton of text on what possibly this may mean. Does it mean they go a little more aggressive to someone, a Devontae Adams, a Chris Godwin, someone like that? Do you think this makes it a bigger focus in the draft? Obviously, you have to approach it, but we saw someone mock yesterday, Tip McMillan, to the Jags at 5. What do you think it skews this more, for free agency or for the draft?
I would say probably free agency or even a trade. I mean, Chris Godwin, I think the assumption is that he will be sticking around in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
That organization definitely seems motivated to keep him around for his entire career. But, I mean, what would rile up Tampa Bay fans more than Liam Cohen dragging Chris Godwin across the state in free agency? That would be pretty special. And then I think immediately Cooper Kupp becomes more interesting as a potential trade market or trade target. Because the Jaguars do have Parker Washington as like their young guy who's former 6th-round pick out of Penn State, had a long touchdown on a punt return last year, but also has been slowly improving as a wide receiver. And he is a smaller guy, so the assumption is that he'd be like a slot receiver and potentially just like the perfect succession plan for Kirk. But I think that the slot works a little bit different here in Liam Cohen's offense with what they want to do with that.
Gus Logue joining us in studio. Gus, one point that our friend Evan Klosky, Tampa Town, WTSP, made when he joined us was that Liam went to Tampa with an idea of what sort of offense he was going to run. And obviously the Mike Evans injury, the Chris Godwin injury significantly impacted that. Part of the rise of many tight ends, not just, why am I blanking on the tight end for the Bucs right now?
K. Dotton.
K. Dotton. Not just the rise of K. Dotton, but several of those previously no-name tight ends was in large part due to the necessity to run more 12 and 13 personnel solely because of the numbers game. That's why I think a lot of people in Jacksonville look at a deep tight end class in this year's NFL draft, knowing you have, at least as of this writing, Evan Ingram and Bretton Strange both on the roster. And that's what I said to Taylor as soon as the news broke from me and I almost said it again, Adam Schefter. Like, I come away from this and I just can't rationalize, as someone who is one of the biggest Christian Kirk as a human being fans in this town, I just can't come away from it in terms of dollars and cents and justify paying someone over $23 million when in reality, if Evan Ingram is going to be taking up a sizable chunk of snaps in the slot and you can pay Parker Washington less than $2 million to take up the rest of those snaps, I can't justify paying Christian Kirk $23 million, even if in his own right, he has inside-outside flexibility, sort of, kind of. But B, that's why I can't justify trading for Cooper Kupp either.
Well, I think the thing that's interesting is that, like, the reason that I bring up Cooper Kupp and also Chris Godwin is how valuable they are as run blockers. And you can essentially attach them to the end of the line of scrimmage as kind of like a pseudo tight end or even 6 offensive linemen. They're that good at helping to chip and double team defensive ends and really add that element of versatility to the offense. It's definitely something that Liam Cohen wants to bring from Kentucky and especially the LA Rams under Sean McVay.
Yeah, they do a lot of 2 tight end stuff and multiple tight end stuff too. So it does fit if you're combining the 2 minds of what James Gladstone has seen in LA and then what Liam Cohen has done in both college and in Tampa.
As I said yesterday on the show, the days, Gus, of, Zay Jones is our blocking wide receiver. Gabe Davis is our blocking wide receiver. Those days are over. Every single wide receiver better be able to block. It also is a perfect segue to today's first roundtable from the 1010XL draft guide. The first roundtable question, which has been released on all of our 1010XL social channels, is live on 1010XL.com. Thank you to Gus, of course, for leading that project for us here at 1010. Let the folks know, number 1, what is today's roundtable question? But number 2, does the move to release Christian Kirk maybe sway how you would have answered today's question?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think it would have swayed what my answer was because the question for today was, what are the Jaguars' top 3 positional needs entering the 2025 offseason? So since we're asking this before free agency happens, obviously free agency is going to have a big part in shaping what the Jaguars and every other team do in the draft. Just going into the offseason, what are the Jaguars' top 3 positional needs? And I think that both what my answer was and like the majority of answers was offensive line, defensive line, and secondary. Mostly cornerback, but the Jaguars are expected to let Andre Sisco hit free agency, and so they would need at least 1, if not 2, new starting safeties, plus potentially a new starter at outside cornerback opposite Tyson Campbell. But really, it definitely begins in the trenches.
You're sticking with those 3, though. You are, even after the move to release Kirk, wide receiver is still not one of the top 3.
Yeah, I think if
It'd be 4 now.
Davis or Evan Ingram end up like moving on, we hear something about those guys being released, then that would certainly change things. But right now, I think that, sure, it's a little bit more of a priority. Even if Kirk was still on the roster, I think you need to address the depth in that room. And now, what kind of a heightened need you need to still address the depth, but it's still a question of depth. Like, you've still got a couple of guys who could start in 2025.
Jack Betch, come on down. Pick 70. Come on down to Duval. I digress.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot because I've pretty much said I want to see 2 new offensive linemen, 2 new defensive linemen. I personally would like to see 2 safeties and obviously an outside corner. And then now you add that wide receiver too. So I think my order would be the same as yours, Gus. Wide receiver now I do think adds a little bit more. And that's been my what if. What if they release Christian Kirk? How much does that make you feel like that wide receiver position is needed? But to your point, if you are working in an offensive scheme where the tight ends are as important as they have been in other stops of these guys, then that Brenton Strange and Evan Ingram, we will see TBD Evan Ingram. But that is such a bigger, massive position group than maybe it had been the last couple years.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, not just for receivers, but for the whole roster, what the different moves in the free agency, maybe trades, and the draft are, because I think it'll tell us obviously about the direction that the Jaguars want to go in terms of the scheme and the characters of the guys that they bring in. But it also, more than anything, I think their actions this offseason will just tell us how they feel about the guys that are currently on the roster. And obviously those guys can all like grow and change under this new leadership and under new coaching. But all the decisions that are going to be made this offseason is the biggest answers. It's just going to be how they feel about who's currently on the team. And so, for example, if they ended up being pretty aggressive in the trade market or free agency for a receiver, then I think that tells you a decent amount of information about like Parker Washington and Gabe Davis.
Also, imagine having a run game and using Travis Etienne in the pass catching game and having screens and having
Imagine a screen going. RJ, we don't need an Imagine by Classes by Design, but I almost want to, because imagine a world in which a screen would go for more than -3 yards in Jacksonville, Florida. Gus Logue, of course, of 1010XL Big Cat Country, leads our 1010XL draft guide coverage. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. You also get him 9:04 a.m. a.m. every single morning. The Duval Rundown podcast live on the 1010XL Jaguars channel and on demand on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Do want to ask you about the interesting conversation that you had this morning on the Duval Rundown podcast. But first, Gus, we're going to bring it back to our big question that we led today's program with. We're doing a series this week. In Lauren's absence, Taylor and I are holding, we're keeping the flag. We're flying through with all of our NFL draft talk. The 3 defensive tackles, not named Mason Graham.
Okay.
You can't say Mason Graham.
He's not on my list.
Good. The 3 defensive tackles who, if we were to pick and start molding what the identity is of a Jaguar, that James Gladstone and Liam Cohen and Tony Baselli are trying to identify. The idea of you see someone playing in college and you say, oh, they're a Detroit Lion. Oh, they're a Pittsburgh Steeler. Who are 3 names along the defensive line in this year's draft that you say, ooh, if that's going to be what a Jaguars defensive lineman is supposed to look like, it's this guy?
Okay, so the first name that I've got is Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee.
He got a couple of votes on the chat line.
Yeah, he's a guy that he's a little bit of an older prospect. I think he turns 23 next week.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a little bit shorter arms, but he's, I guess, a little bit undersized in terms of just interior defensive lineman, but he's certainly not a small prospect. It's more about his arm length. But this guy has perhaps the best get off in the entire class, but certainly among interior defensive linemen. And that's like where a lot of people start when they evaluate defensive linemen is like, you got to be able to get off the ball and threaten the opposing blockers in order to have even a chance of winning at the NFL level. So he's got that. He's got some pretty good athleticism, even if he doesn't have the arm length that the Jaguars' former general manager would have been looking for. And so
I had a short arm guy too.
he actually led the country last year among all FBS defensive linemen in pass rush win rate.
Yeah.
And so he didn't play a lot of snaps because it was less about him, more about Tennessee had a very heavy rotation of defensive linemen. But he did play less than half the snaps of Mason Graham and still had the same amount of sacks of him last year, which was 5. So this is a guy that's going to give you a lot of juice in terms of the pass rush from the interior. He is definitely not like your best. He's not necessarily a run stuffer. He's going to, especially at the beginning of his career, because of his frame, not do great against double teams, just not do great against the run really in general. But if you want kind of a penetrating up the field defensive lineman who's going to affect the quarterback, and I think that it's to be determined what Anthony Campanile kind of envisions for his specific defense and his scheme. But in terms of what James Gladstone and Tony Baselli and the Jaguars want as a whole, they're going to want someone who's tenacious and aggressive and gets after the quarterback. And that's almost one of his weaknesses, is that sometimes he's just so enthused and so eager to get after the quarterback that he can kind of slow down his pass rush a little bit, be a little bit more patient in his approach. And so he's a guy that I think Mason Graham, obviously the belle of the ball in terms of pass rushing interior defensive lineman in this draft. But if you don't get him in the first round, I think that Norman Lott from Tennessee is definitely a name to keep an eye on in the day 2 of the draft.
For the sake of time, tell us your 2 defensive linemen. Maybe we talk about it on the Duval Rundown podcast tomorrow at 9:04. But then, yes, also tell us about, since we dove into who is the Jaguars' new defense coordinator on Duval Rundown this morning, tell us a little bit more about your interview and make sure people know where they can find it.
Yeah, this morning I talked to Justice Mosqueda of Acme Packing Co., covering the Packers for SB Nation. He's a guy that I think not just me, but all of us have been following on Twitter for a while. Definitely a certified ball knower. So I wanted to ask him about Campanile, but also about the Packers' defense as a whole and what we can expect here in Jacksonville. And Justice did a good job of breaking down that it depends on whether Campanile wants to run more of the Halfley stuff, which is kind of a 4-down front, rushing with 4 pass rushers and having more one single high safety over the top, as opposed to Vic Fangio stuff, because the Packers defensive coordinator before Jeff Halfley last year was Joe Barry, and he ran a lot of quarter stuff, a lot of deep zone stuff that he's kind of a member of the Fangio tree. And so Campanile was also there under that staff. And he
was in Miami with Vic too.
Right, exactly. And so does Campanile want to do more of the Vic stuff, which is a little bit more 5-down fronts, but really the defensive linemen, they're trying to just let the linebackers do a lot of work behind them. They're kind of holding their gaps, kind of peeking around offensive linemen, just making sure they have gap integrity. But then as opposed to Halfley's defense, which is a bit more aggressive, they're really trying to shoot up field and just kind of cause havoc. And so I think that for the latter system, Halfley's system, someone like Mason Graham, someone like Omar Norman Lott would make a lot of sense for that. And then for Fangio's system, you want guys that are less like penetrators and more so, again, just kind of holding double teams.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because Omar Norman Lott was my next because I put a backup just in case Mia and I had any matches, which we had one and she pivoted, but he was a name I had on there. The only concerns, and you mentioned, were maybe the playing time compared to he is older. So it's like he's an older guy but doesn't have as much playing time, but also you could say that means he doesn't have as much tread. But when I mentioned a chart that Dom C had, if you don't follow him, he's on and he has a podcast. It's like the Scouting Academy, but it broke it up into 4 categories. It was all-arounders, run stuffers, tweeners, and pass rush specialists. He was the highest rated pass rush specialist on his chart. And this is just first 2, like round 1, round 2 guys. But it was him, TJ Sanders, Darius Alexander, and Mason Graham were the top 4, but he was by far the best when it came to that category.
Duval Rundown, 9:04 a.m. every single day, Monday to Friday, on the 1010XL Jaguars YouTube channel. You can, of course, get it on demand as well. And wherever you get your podcast, that is where you will find our Gus Logue. And the NFL Draft Guide is well on its way, and it will be released in full at the end of the month.
Yeah, looking forward to that. We're going to have write-ups on over 200 prospects with bios, stats, player comparisons. We're also going to have our roundtable series with the hosts. We're going to have a big board. Not sure how many players we're going to have on that big board, but we will have a big board. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of different components, a lot of exciting components. I'm excited for that to launch or officially get published in late March, but we do have this kind of build up to it as well. And that'll be available for download on 1010XL.com. Charles Davis of the NFL Network set to join us next right here on a Wednesday edition of Helmets and Heels on 1010XL and 92.5 FM.
What do you think Dan and Jeff would be doing if they were never hired at 1010XL?
We were just wondering if you could give us a little advice on our careers.
Dan Hicken and Jeff Prosser.
Get out of show business.
Now. Mornings on 1010XL.
Value or flavor? Price or taste? Why choose when you can get both with everyday deals at Sonny's? Right now, you can get the pork big deal for $10, the pork and rib combo for $12, and all you can eat ribs for just $19.99. Yep, you heard right. All your favorites are now available all day, every day. And that's why it's always Sonny's here. Sonny's Barbecue, local pitmasters since '68.
Here for Pro Jacks Roofing. Here at the Superstation, we talk a lot about pros. Pro football, pro baseball, pro basketball, pro sports. But if you want a true pro when it comes to your roof, you should call Mike with Pro Jacks Roofing. Mike has been in the roofing biz for well over 25 years. And when you call, you don't just get some recording. You get Mike himself. Find Mike's cell phone number on projacksroofingfl.com. That's projacksroofingfl.com. Don't rely on the third stringer. Call in the starter with Mike at Pro Jacks Roofing.
Here's Linda Beaver.
It's a new year with new goals, but let's face it, not all resolutions are easy to keep. Maybe you promised yourself you'd eat healthier, but pizza still seems like a better idea. Or you said you'd read more, but your favorite show just launched a new season. At Beaver Toyota and Beaver Chevrolet, we can help you keep your New Year's resolution. We offer the biggest selection, best prices, and the easiest car buying experience. Let's make a resolution to visit Beaver Toyota or Beaver Chevrolet, where we'll wow you with a new ride for the new year.
Everybody, Mike Dempsey here with Matt and Catherine. They made the decision to lose weight and improve their lives together, both dropping 33 pounds thanks to Awaken 180 weight loss.
She came home so excited one day and said, I heard about Awaken 180. I'm so excited. You have to try it with me. It's not medication. It's not a shot. It's food. You're going to make meals. And I think that was one of the biggest selling points.
What makes Awaken 180 different is the maintenance program. Just to know that you get that support gives me the confidence to keep going. I think it's important for people to know how much more fun it is to do it with a partner. Just to have the support system, it's so much more helpful.
It's going to change your life.
Thanks, guys. Like any goal, accomplishing it with someone sharing the same goal makes it twice as easy and twice as rewarding. Grab a coworker, friend, or spouse and make your 180 with the solution for weight loss online at awaken180weightloss.com.
Joe C. for Hard Rock Bet. Football season may be over, but there's plenty of action everywhere else. Not sure what to bet on? Check out the Discover page at Hard Rock Bet. You can download the app or head to hardrock.bet. College basketball, we're closing in on the biggest tournament of the year. Don't go in blind. Bet on the action today. Hard Rock Bet. Download the app. Offered by the Seminole Tribe of Florida. Must be 21 plus and physically present in Florida to wager. Terms and conditions apply. Concerned about gambling? Call 1-888-ADMIT-IT.
It's a Helmets and Heels Kingfish Pest Control Wednesday.
You've got a lot on your plate. The last thing you need is car trouble. At Maxie's Mechanics, we help you keep your cars, trucks, and SUVs running safely. Visit MaxieAutoRepair.com today for honest service, reliable repairs, and peace of mind for you and your family.
Pickett here with my concierge doctor, Richard Townsend. Doc T, how does a concierge direct primary care operate?
We are a membership-based primary care made directly between a patient and physician. We'll have a limited amount of patients that allows us to give unlimited access and personal service to you. This individualized approach has been shown to lower hospitalizations as well as maintain healthier lives. We also give 24/7 access via phone to me outside of our scheduled office hours.
To learn more, go to mypvconcierge.com.
Mark Watson with Hardball Creative. If you have a school, team, or group that would benefit from a team store, you're in luck because we now offer team stores. Check us out at hardballcreative.com.
Hardball Creative. Hardball does it all.
Good teachers and coaches get the most out of their scholar athletes. That's why 1010XL salutes the Scholar Athlete of the Week.
Brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists.
And the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Local Union 234.
Wednesdays on The Franchi Show.
Our slogan, Know Before You Blow, applies to more than just DUI cases. Hi, I'm attorney Lee Lockett of Lockett Law. Battery charges can result in jail time and criminal convictions too. So know before you blow a gasket and hit a loved one or a stranger. Drug crimes like possession of marijuana and cocaine will land you in cuffs too. So know before you blow. In a boating under the influence case, you also have the option to blow or not to blow. So know your options. Know before you blow. Go to knowbeforeyouBlow.com now. Offices Jacksonville.
The First Tee Tour Card is back for 2025 and better than ever, with access to over 15 of North Florida's best courses and new this year, local participating businesses. This card is your ticket to saving hundreds. First Tee North Florida is a local nonprofit who build character in youth participants through the game of golf. This annual fundraiser enables this amazing organization the ability to build game changers. Grab your tour card for just $99 at tourcard.org for a list of participating partners, benefits, and restrictions.
When it rains, it better drain. If storm drains on your commercial property aren't doing their job, this is a major liability that needs to be corrected. Call Duck Duck Rooter to have your storm drains jetted and cleaned with our powerful vac con truck. We'll clear the way for better drainage. Call 904-862-6769. Visit duckduckrooter.com. Proud partner of the Jacksonville Jags. Duck Duck Rooter, your fully insured certified plumbing and underground utility contractor.
1010XL is presented by Farah & Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville.
We go together, better than birds of a feather, you and me.
True story, Taylor Doll. I identified myself to our next guest at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis last week as student and friend of Ian Eagle in the Weston Coffee Shop, so I'm going to continue to identify myself as such. Mia O'Brien, Taylor Doll, a pleasure now to be joined by the NFL Network's Charles Davis. Charles, thanks so much for hopping on with us.
Hey, thanks for having me, and it's good to talk with you again, and that was very kind of you to come up and say hello while we were in Indianapolis, and I hope your time there was a good time, because I actually got some great info out of mine.
Ooh, well, we can't wait to hear some of that info if you're able to share.
When I say great info, it means I got educated.
Hey, well, listen, we are in the business.
That's what we're here for.
In the words of Jaguars owner Shad Khan, Charles, we learn something new every day. That is the goal, and so we're excited to learn with you as part of NFL Network's coverage of the Scouting Combine last week, everything that you learned. So, hey, let's go big picture here. What was the biggest takeaway for you from the Combine last week? Maybe a particular player, maybe a particular position group, or perhaps a team and some moves that they may be making in the near future.
Let's talk about the game itself first and foremost, because as you guys observe football and watch it, I'm sure you have the same thought that I do. How can they be this big, move that fast, and stay on the field for that long? I'm talking about big people, offensive linemen, defensive linemen. The things that we're seeing nowadays, we used to have an expression that you didn't have to ask a guy if he weighed 300 pounds. You could see it. It was real easy, right? A 300-pounder was a little sloppy, had what we used to call Dunlop's disease. That means when your stomach Dunlopped over your belt, okay? It was real easy to see. Nowadays, it's not. The guys who weigh 320 pounds carry it like they're carrying 270, 280. You know, they look cut up. Their physiques are great. The stamina, like Jalen Carter last year with Philadelphia, was playing over 90% of their defensive snaps. 315, 320-pound defensive lineman. The game has just changed, and each time you think you can't see any more, I feel like you do. And I thought we saw that at this year's Combine with offensive and defensive linemen and what they're doing athletically. It's just truly off the charts. And, of course, if I have to single one player out, I think it's kind of unanimous. Nick Emenwari, the safety from South Carolina, he won the Combine as an individual, being 6'2", 6'3", almost 230 pounds, running sub 4.4, vertical jump at 43.5, broad jumping 11'9", and then you turn on his tape, and by the way, he's a really good football player too.
Yeah, Charles, it's interesting because we've had the conversation a lot when it comes to the changes and the body build that we're seeing. And we've talked a lot about the linebackers, for example, who now you have these super athletic linebackers because they have to drop back into coverage because of things that the passing game can do now. But then now this last year, we started kind of seeing the shift a little bit back to the importance of the run game and bringing that out. So it really is going to be fascinating the next few years to see how coaches really approach this and that balance of especially the dual quarterbacks that we're just seeing more and more every day. And so that actually was going to be one of my questions when you're talking about from the Combine, because that interior defensive line is our topic of the day here on the show, but it's the topic of one of the biggest topics of the offseason for the Jaguars. So specifically when you were seeing that, were there any of the defensive line interior guys that you left saying their stock rose a ton or fell a ton, whatever way you want to go with that?
Yeah. Listen, whether it rose, fell, what have you, let's just throw some names, right? Because this is where it gets fun, right? Mason Graham from Michigan didn't work out, but he's going to be in range when the Jaguars pick, right? Depending on what happens ahead of them or whatever moves the Jags want to make, if somehow something happens, someone offers them a nice little bounty to move down, you get the whole idea, right? The draft is a board that can go up and down depending on the situation. But Mason Graham sitting there at 5 from Michigan, the thing that struck me, I don't know how you guys felt about it, was when you first see Mason Graham in person where he's just wearing sweats or workout gear, I'm not sure you're overly impressed. You know, we were talking about how cut up these guys are and how good looking they are in their physique. Mason Graham just looks like a guy.
He looks like a lunch pail guy, I think is how some Jaguar fans described it. And Charles, I know your colleague Daniel Jeremiah said when he went to a Michigan game earlier in the season, he was almost like worried when he shows up and he's on the field pregame and he looks at Mason Graham and goes, this isn't the guy. And then the game starts and he goes, oh, no, never mind. This is still the guy.
Yeah, this is the guy. And that just tells you everything. Sure, you want to be cut up. Sure, you want to have this physique. Sure, you want. But bottom line, you want to be a great football player. And Mason Graham's a great football player. When you watch his punch coming off the line of scrimmage, you watch his hand placement and usage, how he controls offensive linemen. And the next thing you know, that one guy's being thrown out of the club, the next guy's being run over, and then a running back's getting crunched. Oh, yeah, now I get it totally. His teammate standing next to him, Kenneth Grant from Michigan, terrific player, another one that's there, Walter Nolan. I'm talking about these interior defensive linemen, Walter Nolan from Ole Miss, formerly of Texas A&M. You just feel like you could go on and on and on because that's what we were getting. You know, Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M is more of an edge guy, but boy, was he terrific in everything he did working out. My alma mater, Tennessee, gave us James Pierce as an edge guy at 250 pounds, ran 4.47 and leaped and jumped and did all the drills like he was, he was cornering like a cornerback. That's what we're getting as we go through it. But the guys at 5, when you're talking about the top of the food chain, I still think Mason Graham's the best interior guy. And it's interesting how people view the edge guys, because are the Georgia guys those guys? And you guys have experience with the Jaguars about Georgia. because of Trayvon. So let's see where it all unfolds. Let's see how it all develops. All I know is, as one coach told me down on the field, he's like, you really don't have to spend much time telling these guys to get in shape because they come ready to go.
Charles Davis of the NFL Network and CBS Sports joining us here on Helmets and Heels. And to that point, Charles, I know DJ and Bucky have said it on Move the Sticks. Do we almost need to create an additional position group for those off-ball linebackers who are also pass rush specialists? That is a whole other can of worms that I'm sure we could get into if we had more time. I want to go back, though, to what you said. At pick 5, if Mason Graham is there, and I have said this for weeks, Charles, on this very station and on the airwaves, he is a double off the wall. He is a solid double off the wall. Put it in the fairway. He is the right pick at 5. However, given the state of the Jaguars' offensive line, there's been much chatter about could they address that position at 5th overall. However, some of the names that have been floated, i.e., a certain Missouri tackle, a certain LSU tackle. What's the common denominator there, Charles? They're both tackles who the Jags would kick inside. Do you think that would be a fair assessment of where the Jaguars sit at 5? And what would you do if you're James Gladstone and Liam Cohen?
Yeah, it's a fair assessment. And you're talking about Will Campbell. That's what we're talking about at LSU. And Armand Membu at Missouri. Membu, not really a discussion about his arm length. That's what Will Campbell's having to deal with now. Are his arms long enough to stay out at tackle? Rashawn Slater, who starts at tackle for the Chargers and is a Pro Bowl player, that was a big question about him. That hasn't been an issue for him. We've had guys where it has been an issue, and they've moved inside and done quite well. Tennessee, in 2 years ago, remember they took Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern, and people were debating about his arm. That they didn't draft him to play tackle in the first; they drafted him to play guard right away. And I think that stigma of, if he's now the left tackle, then he must be a bust. I think that's kind of gone away, especially if teams announce what they plan to do early. So those guys are in the running. Here's the question I have for all three of us, right? Since we're here deciding we're going to be James Gladstone and Shad Khan and Tony Khan and everyone else, right? Let's go ahead and put our heads together. What if the draft unfolds? Quarterbacks at 1 and 2, right, in whatever order they come off of. I'm saying no trades right now, right? And this is our hypothetical, okay? And let's say the Giants, who last year passed on who's the kid out of Washington, Penix.
Michael Penix.
They passed on Bo Nix. They passed on J.J. McCarthy. All three were available when the Giants picked. And now, guess what? They're in a quarterback quandary. Let's say they take a quarterback at 3. Let's say they blow up the draft first night. Whoa! Giants at 3 take quarterback. Now you're sitting there at 4 with New England. They don't need a quarterback, so we know they're not going there. Let's say New England goes big. Abdul Carter hasn't been taken yet from Penn State. Now you're sitting there at 5. You have needs, offensive line, defensive line. But Travis Hunter hasn't been taken yet. What do you do?
It's funny, Charles, because Taylor asked me, we share an office in addition to co-hosting a show together, and she asked me the same exact question this morning.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, we're here. Let's chop it up a little bit. Because you're trying to, listen, you're not, I don't know if you're at your last stand, but it feels like it. Trevor Lawrence, is this the year that we see what we're supposed to see? He's got a new head coach in, again, who's supposed to be a quarterback guy. He had one in Doug Peterson, right? It hasn't worked totally. Like we saw the big flash 2 seasons ago. Last year it didn't come through again. But this is it. This is the big swing, right? This is the time. Are you going to go all out to help him? If so, Travis Hunter is a big help. And I know people are debating whether he plays offense or defense. I would say that the owner is going to get involved in this discussion. And most owners are going to tell their coaching staff, I want to see him score touchdowns, please. Touchdowns work for us. So he plays receiver with a smattering of DB. That's kind of the way it would look to me if he were to go to Jacksonville. But would you make that move, or would you pass on a Travis Hunter for a lineman in this situation? That's going to be the heck of a question.
Yeah, and that's a discussion we're going to have now for the next almost 2 months. And another thing that we are talking about, obviously news today breaking that the Jags are releasing Christian Kirk too. So that what a lot of people had and kind of, okay, offensive line, defensive line, and that secondary corner safety was an argument. Maybe that wide receiver room has now become more important. And interesting enough, Charles, yesterday, Lance Zierlein drops a mock draft and has the Jags taking Ted McMillan at 5. And so that one was wild to a lot of people yesterday. Maybe today makes a little bit more sense.
Not so wild now when you release one of your starting receivers, right? All of a sudden, things change a little bit. And Lance is a terrific football guy. You know, if you guys haven't spent any time with Lance, do so, because I think you guys have a great conversation, being able to put all three heads together and chop it up a little bit. But that makes sense, too. Now, the thing about McMillan, he reminds me a lot of Mike Evans coming out, where he has speed, but it's not the same speed as a Travis Hunter or someone else where it flashes early. That was what we call build-up speed. And after 20 yards, you think you're running with the guy, and then you realize he's left you behind. Big, long strides, right? Goes up and gets it. Kind of a Drake London-ish type of a player who's with Atlanta now. Big body, big catches, things of that nature. Quarterbacks never turn down that type of a player because those types of receivers tend to make incompletions into completions.
Charles Davis of NFL Network and CBS, kind enough to give us a few minutes here on this Wednesday edition of Helmets and Heels. Charles, I'll leave you with this. You spent last week covering the Combine, covering the NFL Draft, but obviously free agency set to begin next week.
Yeah.
Of all the nuggets of knowledge that you gained while you were in Indianapolis last week, is your expectation, this new administration for the Jaguars, because I know Taylor and I have debated it the last few days since I got back from Indy. My expectation is that with Tony Boselli as the executive vice president, this is a team that is going to be built, or at least they are going to try to build it from the draft. I don't know if they will be that active in free agency, the trade market, especially given first-time GM, first-time head coach. What say you?
I like your expectation, and I think it's a strong one. Build through the draft. Remember, Tony is Mr. Jaguar because of the draft, right? And was a building block for the foundation of that franchise during their glory days. Here's the other part. Everyone's talking about Philadelphia being the model now, right? They're the blueprint. Well, they've always been the blueprint. Not Philadelphia, but the blueprint is build your team with your offensive and defensive lines. Everyone talks about it. How many people stick to it is the key. With a Tony Boselli around, with James Gladstone coming from the Rams, who do a nice job. Look at what they did last year, getting Jared Verse and Braden Fisk on the defensive front to help themselves out. I would say that what you're saying is right on target, and off we go from there. But the biggest thing is everybody's going to want to build offensive, defensive lines, but you have to evaluate properly, draft properly, and then you have to coach and develop properly. Philadelphia has done all of those things. That's a challenge for every other franchise in the league.
Charles Davis, we greatly appreciate you taking some time on this Wednesday. By the way, plenty of our listeners, we call them Heeligans, Charles, texted in. They left comments on the YouTube live stream. As soon as you said, would you take Travis Hunter, we got about 5 people who said, I would trade up
for him.
to 4 to select Travis Hunter.
The people have spoken. The people have spoken.
The
Great
Heeligans.
talking with you. Hey, listen, love it. The Heeligans have jumped out and let us know exactly what they want. Fantastic talking with you both. Can't wait to talk with you again down the road. Continued success to you all, okay?
Appreciate you, Charles. Let's hope let's hope you and I and that number 2 team for CBS get a couple games in Duval this year, huh? Let's make that happen.
Believe me, I would love it. That's like a home game for me.
Hey.
You guys take care.
Thanks, Charles. Again, Charles Davis. You get him on the NFL Network and CBS. One more segment to go on this Wednesday edition of Helmets and Heels. We cool things down. A look back at some of the postseason awards in the A-Sun, as well as some breaking news from the local conference. That's still to come on Helmets and Heels on 1010XL and 92.5 FM.
Your home for Gators hoops is 1010XL.
Top 10 in the nation, top 3 in the SEC. It's a battle of conference powers tonight in Tuscaloosa, Florida, Alabama. Hear it live at 7 on 1010 AM.
Don't miss the Players' Championship, March 11th through 16th at TPC Sawgrass. This can't-miss event features a variety of activities for every fan to enjoy, from delicious bites to the Sawgrass Splash. There are endless fan enhancements that will make for a memorable experience. Plus, watch the top PGA Tour players, including back-to-back champion Scottie Scheffler, take on the iconic stadium course featuring the famous Island Green. Tickets available at theplayers.com.
If you are an experienced electrician looking for your next big opportunity, look no further than the Miller Electric Company, a trusted name in the industry for over 96 years. At Miller Electric, we tackle the biggest projects in the city, offering you the chance to showcase your skills on a grand scale. We believe in rewarding hard work with the best pay, top-notch benefits, and an unbeatable culture where people actually care about each other. Take your career to new heights with Miller Electric Company. Apply today at millercareers.com. Miller Electric, an equal opportunity employer.
Okay, so the three little words I'm about to say are the ones that everyone wants to hear. No, not I love you or paid time off, though that's really nice. No, these three words are the ones you've waited all year for. Ready, set, go. To the Ready, Set, Go sales event going on now at Arlington Toyota. Mia here, the Arlington Toyota lot is jam-packed with inventory, over 800 vehicles to choose from. And if saving big on a new Toyota wasn't enough, my friends at Arlington also include their lifetime warranty with your purchase, unlimited time and miles. And I say unlimited drive and confidence. Plus, you also get the advantage of Arlington's 60-day exchange program. That's 60 days to love your new purchase or exchange it for one that you do. Who does that? I'll tell you who. Arlington Toyota. The only thing left to ask is, why aren't you at Arlington yet? Let's go and shop the Ready, Set, Go sales event at Arlington Toyota, now through March 31st, in person on Atlantic Boulevard, just a quarter mile east of 295, or at arlingtontoyota.com.
David Garrard here. I've had the PRP treatment from Southeast Orthopedic Specialists, and my knees are really doing well. Platelet-rich plasma treatment may be the answer for whatever is hurting you.
Southeast Orthopedic Specialists.
My son had a meniscus surgery a couple of years ago. When it's smooth as silk, Dr. Kevin Murphy did it. Was playing tennis in 2 weeks. This is Patrick Malarkey, and I highly recommend
Southeast Orthopedic Specialists.
Kingfish Pest Control Wednesday.
Helmets and heels.
This is Hayes Carlion for Physician Guided Weight Loss. I'm down 20 pounds already thanks to Physician Guided Weight Loss. I feel great, and it's all thanks to them. Their amazing technology, fast setup, friendly staff, and proven results have sold me. They can help you too, and it's affordable with firm pricing. No rising costs as you go. If you're like me and looking to kick off the new year with a leaner body, call my friends at Physician Guided Weight Loss at 257-4344. That's 257-4344.
Make the most of every lawn with Kubota commercial landscaping equipment. From the productivity-boosting Z700 mower to the reliable SVL track loader, it's a lineup built to get the job done right. Because when your reputation is on the line, you need equipment that will never let you down. Visit Coastal Equipment in Jacksonville or McClenny.
Greater power for the great outdoors. Coastal Equipment.
Coastal Equipment on New Kings Road and in McClenny.
Everyone seems to be in a time crunch these days. Well, don't forget you can always count on the cold case at Daly's. Always convenient, always cold. Whether it's the king of beers, Natty Light, Stella, or Cigar City, or Goose Island or Bud Light Seltzer, dash into Daly's and grab one to go.
It's the blog players put their pads on for.
So we gotta bring my thoughts and observations on our home team. That's what I share with you every week on my blog.
Roland Reach Plumbing brings you Hayes Blog on 1010XL.com.
Hey folks, Rick Ballou here from the Blue Crab Crab House. February means the Mardi Gras menu returns to the Blue Crab Crab House. Gumbo, shrimp Orleans, black and red fish, appetizers, dessert, and more. This includes, of course, their regular menu where you get crabs from the Alaskan waters, the Canadian waters, the Southern Georgia waters. It's only at the Blue Crab Crab House. Doors open at 4:30, San Jose, and of course, Jewington Creek Road.
Haymaker Coffee is a local coffee brand to help fuel your daily grind. Why Haymaker? It's fuel for the morning hustle, the late night, and every step of the way. Bold flavors for the bold city. Online at haymakercoffeeco.com.
Buying a diamond, wedding band, or piece of fashion jewelry in Jacksonville? You have two choices. You can go to locally owned Beard's Diamonds, or you can go to one of those mega national chain jewelry stores. The national chains are pretty much all the same. In fact, did you know that some of them are owned by the same conglomerate? Yes, the same Wall Street company owns all the big names. So if you're looking for extreme value with genuine personal attention, come experience the Beard's Diamond difference. At Beard's, our diamonds come straight from the source. We hand select each one for maximum brilliance chains. We don't have to apply corporate markups and tack on salespeople commissions, so we beat the chains on price every single day. Beards has the strongest warranties, not gotcha clauses and fine print. Beards has all the top designers, including Tacori and Viraggio. Beards doesn't have out-of-state regional managers calling about sales quotas. We are all local, family-owned, with total freedom to do what's right for our customers. Beards Diamonds, all the selection, quality, value, and service you want from local people, accountable only to you. Beards in the St. John's Town Center.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Now, the cool down from the cool guys at Donovan Air Electric and Plumbing. Fast, reliable, and honest service since '87.
I'm going to cool down with some of the big news from today, which is the release of Christian Kirk, and I'm seeing all sorts of mixed responses on Twitter, on our text line, on our YouTube chat, all of it. But I do think we had Gus on, so we didn't fully share our thoughts and feelings on it. I think that it was one of the moves that honestly I was kind of expecting, and I think that for multiple reasons. You and I talked a little bit about this off air, Mia, but number one, I think that there's been a lot of injury issues with Christian Kirk, and it's unfortunate because we go back to he's an amazing person, he's an amazing human, he has this connection with Trevor Lawrence. That's been his dude here in Jacksonville, and when Christian Kirk's not healthy, you saw that massively change when it came to what Trevor was able to do comfortably on the football field, and so you don't want to take those people away, but in the same breath, there's been a lot of injury issues. And to me, I honestly think that the 2022 season was a little bit of the outlier of Christian Kirk's career. The rest has all been around that 700-800, 3-4 touchdowns. And that 2022 season was insane and it was fantastic. But I feel like that was maybe the offset of everything else. And I do think that go back to a couple weeks ago when we were talking to Jordan Rodriguez about James Gladstone and what they did with the Rams and how you have to make some uncomfortable decisions to build your roster for the future. You have to cut some guys. Unfortunately, you have to release guys. You have to trade guys that maybe don't fit what you see in the future of this new regime. And the old regime didn't work. There was a lot of losing. I read a stat this week where it was talking about the surrounding help of Trevor and the Jags having the second worst in the NFL since 2020. We can go over thing after thing after thing. We're now in this third year where we're talking about offensive line again, interior defensive line again, corner again. We're talking about the same exact position groups of need for the third year in a row, and that has to change. And for that to change, you have to make some unfortunate business decisions and uncomfortable decisions, and you're going to be upset because you have attachments to these people, but you have to think about what is best for the Jaguars in the next 10-plus years.
If I may, I actually have a positive thing to say about Trent Baalke.
Oh.
And that's he introduced the word onboarding into our lexicon. And that is, for me, not the reason that he was fired, but to your point, Taylor, it is one of the reasons that ultimately the Jaguars had to part ways. Yes, he didn't hit on every single NFL draft pick, which in turn would be the next guy in line. To your point of 2022, when Christian Kirk was signed as a free agent, Zay Jones signed as a free agent, Brandon Scherf, Foye Oluokun, those deals were signed even going back to the year prior with the Roy Robertson-Harris deal, the Rayshawn Jenkins deal. Those were deals that were signed to be a 2 to 3 year stopgap.
Yeah.
The goal was always we are going to draft the next guy who will then take over, and we will get out from underneath those contracts because of the way that we have crafted them. And so this is part of the plan. I think even if Trent Baalke was still the general manager today, I do think that Christian Kirk would have been released today.
Yeah.
Because this has always been the plan. And again, I go back to the point we made with Gus, which are thanks to our very own Gus Logue for joining us. And of course, NFL Draft Guide coverage, Duval Rundown, so much great stuff coming on 1010XL.com and the 1010XL Jaguars YouTube channel. As the point I made to you and Gus, Taylor, I can't come away from, independent of how much 12 or 13 personnel Liam Cohen may have run in Tampa and may run here, I can't come away from if Evan Ingram is going to take up a sizable number of snaps in the slot, and Parker Washington has proved that he is more than capable of being a contributing member of an NFL offense, then for me, I can't justify $23 million to Christian Kirk if he's only playing half of those snaps in the slot. And yes, to his credit, he has proven during his time in Jacksonville he has some inside-outside flexibility. Not to the extent of, say, a Brian Thomas Jr., who we would also expect especially if, as Liam Cohen said, the offense is going to run through him. You can expect Brian Thomas Jr. to have some sizable snaps in the slot this upcoming season. That doesn't leave any snaps to go around for Christian Kirk, and that's why this move, ultimately, in my estimation, was made today.
Was going to happen either way. And that's what when you go through this, Mia, and this is just a quick glimpse at what has happened, and that's just to say the last 2 years. So this time last year, we were talking about the year previous, and you re-signed Cam Robinson at that time. You drafted Anton Harrison. You got Walker and Luke Fortner. You traded for Ezra Cleveland, and you signed Sheriff. And you were still at this point last year saying you needed offensive linemen and that you were running back the wrong guys. Now here we are again, and you also added a Javon Foster in the draft since that point.
May not even make the roster this year.
May not even make the roster, and you're still looking now at offensive linemen. And then when you go over and you're talking about when they signed Roy Robertson Harris, this was the conversation of last year of what they thought they fixed. And then at the end of the last season, at the end of last year, you're talking about the same thing. But they signed Roy Robertson Harris. You extended him. You extended Devon Hamilton. You signed Foley, Fadakasi, and then you still had interior defensive line issues. So this last year, what do? You go draft 2 interior defensive linemen. You go get Eric Armstead, play him at the wrong position, but you still add all of these pieces, and then now you're still looking at an interior defensive line that needs help. And then you go, and we're talking about, again, back to last year. They went and they got a Darius Williams, a Shaq Griffin. You drafted Tyson and 2 or 3 other late in the 3-year period to have this cornerback room fixed. And then last year you go and you get a Ronald Darby and a Savage who you're trying to figure out where exactly he was going to go. And then now you're still in a spot where you need corners. They've made $5 billion moves in all of these areas, and that's not even talking about wide receiver, because now we're back to the position too. Yes, you have Brian Thomas Jr., who is going to be a stud number 1 wide receiver in the NFL, so you do have that, but now you're back talking about now we need wide receiver. So every single position group we've been talking about for 3 years that you need.
Taylor Dahl wants off the hamster wheel.
Oh my God,
she feels like
I'm getting dizzy.
She feels like the earth, time is a flat circle.
James, help us.
We just keep going around and around and around. To a couple of the Heeligans on the YouTube chat line, Heth, Louie, a couple of you guys referencing Jack Betch. Yes. I know. Yeah, we've referenced him a couple of times on this program, the Cooper Kupp clone, if you may, and perhaps he could be there at 70. I don't know if he makes it out of the second round. Before we get ready to say hello to XL Primetime, didn't get a chance to yesterday, so do want to give a congratulations to, from the University of North Florida, Josh Harris named to the ASUN All-Freshman team, Josiah Miles named a third-team All-ASUN member, and meanwhile for JU, who will play tomorrow night in the ASUN Conference Tournament semifinals at North Alabama, Rob McCray, once again, a first-team All-ASUN selection. And this one's a local one as well, folks. Providence grad JU freshman Chris Arias named to the ASUN All-Freshman team. Additionally, in case you missed the news this morning, the ASUN is one of the few conference tournaments that still sees a system in which all of the games in the conference tournament are played on home sites. That will be no more starting in 2026. Yes, the first round games in both the men's and the women's basketball tournaments will take place on home courts. But then for the quarterfinals, semifinals, and championship round, they're coming to Duval. VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena will be the host of the ASUN men's and women's basketball tournaments, a multi-year agreement announced this morning. Frank Frangie will have an exclusive interview coming up at 5 o'clock with the commissioner, Jeff Bacon, of the ASUN, and even more insights into our 2 local college teams. But for now, let's say hello to XL Primetime.
Now, the 2-minute drill. Serviced by Cool Cats Heating and Cooling. Locally owned and operated. We're your neighbors. Find the coolest cats in town at coolcatsjacks.com.
Leon Searcy, Taylor Dahl just took us to church, rattling off all of the storylines that it feels like this. Yeah. It's Groundhog Day. Yeah. Again, here we are, once again, begging for the Jaguars to add depth along the defensive line, to add depth along the offensive line.
Or starters. I would like some starters there too, Leon.
Okay. Listen, I've been the proponent of the big, the first 3 picks.
Yeah.
I have no problem.
Where are you leaning? Which way are you leaning?
I'm thinking they're going to need to go. I'm thinking they'll go Will
Campbell.
Will Campbell.
Okay.
Then
I have a follow-up, but continue.
And then Grant.
Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. Yep.
And then you know what? I like Sawyer. I like the guy that defensive end out of Ohio State. I like those. If we pick those 3 guys right there, I have no problem.
Let me ask you this: as a former Pro Bowl, All-Pro offensive lineman. As a tackle,
Yeah.
Will Campbell, the talk of he would kick inside to guard. He was very vocal, very transparent at the Combine last week.
Yeah.
It's almost as if he was specifically calling the Jaguars out by name. He said, if you're going to draft me in the top 5 and play me at right guard, I will play. Because I just want to go top 5 and I want to play. I don't want to wait around.
Yeah.
How easy do we dismiss this idea of, well, obviously a tackle can kick inside to guard?
Yeah.
Is it in reality for that player to actually go to the guard position?
You know, it's a little bit more difficult. If you're a tackle, essentially, you're going up against much leaner, faster guys. If you're going inside interiorly, you're going up against 6'4", 6'5", 345. Guys who get on you quick now. Now, could he play guard? Of course he could. Could he play it effectively is the question that you have to ask yourself. You can ask me and Baselli when we came out, when we were drafted, we wanted to play good. We didn't want that smoke. We didn't. I would just be honest with you because it's a different beast in the inside interiorly.
Yeah.
You're dealing with 1 and 3 techniques. You're dealing with big, fast, physical men right now on you. At least at tackle, you give yourself a chance to get set, come out your sands to get your hands on guys. But when you get down there dirty in the middle with those guys, there's some powerful guys. And if you haven't played the position for a long time, I mean, you're going to have to learn on the fly.
How quickly, when you are watching guys, can you tell if they would be better if they swung inside or stayed outside, or if they're a versatile guy that can play everywhere? How quickly can you usually tell when you're watching?
Well, I mean, it's going to take a while. It's going to take reps.
Yeah.
It's going to take reps. It's going to take leverage. It's going to take knee bend, getting your hands on people, getting them inside quick. It factors all that kind of stuff in. So if he does make the process into the guard position, I mean, he's got to be, dare I say, initiated.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's got to go up against guys and get himself acclimated to guys getting on him right now, when essentially at tackle you got a little bit more time.
But you're taking him at 5. So
Yeah,
where
I
are you?
would take
Where
him.
are you playing?
I'm playing him at right guard.
Okay.
Yeah, I will play him at right guard.
And you think he can make that transition?
I think he could make that transition. I think he's big, athletic enough. I saw him at the Combine, and his numbers were out there. And then I saw him during the season. I saw him struggle against some teams at left tackle. I mean, he took
some lumps this year, to
some
be
lumps.
certain, because a lot of people believed he was undefinitely a top 5 pick coming into the 2024
Yeah,
season.
he took some lumps, and there's been talk about his arm length. He doesn't have the arm length to defend guys and keep them off the. But hey, listen, if he's a ball player, he's a ball player.
Turn on the tape.
Yeah.
Game
Watch the
on,
tape.
right? Game
Yeah,
on.
Absolutely.
What's coming up on XL Primetime?
Well, we're going to talk free agency. We're going to talk draft, and we got Coach Campo coming in.
Say less. We know what's coming. They're bringing their A game on XL Primetime. Leon, looking forward to
You got it.
The boys of Primetime have the airwaves for the next 2 hours. Our thanks to Charles Davis of the NFL Network and CBS Sports. Our thanks to Neil Blackman of Saturday Down South. Our thanks to our very own Gus Logue, his maiden voyage. I said it to Neil, but certainly Gus's maiden voyage here in the studio with Helmets and Heels, talking all things NFL Draft Guide here at 1010 XL. For the vacationing Lauren Brooks, for producer RJ Saunders, for Taylor Dahl, I am Mia O'Brien saying so long. We will catch you tomorrow.
And you keep losing when you ought to not.